Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, 225 thousandths above, up onto the Tang. Again, the 475, 4, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Oh! Yeah, we got that one close, didn't we? Bring it back out. You see the slot. Bring it up another 100. Bring it in. Squeeze again. Now the rear tang itself is about 250 thousandths up. Actually, in the case of a River 10.2, it's a little bit different. But for shits and giggles, we'll say a quarter inch. And what that means is I've got to be up higher than that in order to get some bedding around the bottom of that rear tang assembly, so that it's held in nice, tight, and straight, and in a repeatable position. If I don't go above that and just go to the escutcheon, whatever distance I have available in the, hang on a second, whatever distance or clearance there is in the bolt hole, that's how far I could be off side to side. So obviously we don't want to be off side to side. So, what I want to do is come up for 250. Right now we are up 400, so we're 150 up above the bottom of the rear tang. So basically what I'll do is I'll go one more time, which gives me a 1/2 inch slot, and I have room to do so, so you know, we should be in good shape. So I'll go one more time. This will be 0.4, but the top of the cutter is actually at 0.5. Lock that one in since it's the last cut. Bring into the touches. Do it again. I know this is kind of boring, but I don't know how to edit these to put a number of videos together, so bear with me. I'd sing for you, but you guys would be going away in droves. So we're looking to get the 475 one last time. The finish of the cut really doesn't make any difference. We're just trying to put something in there that we can get clearance for some DevCon. Let's go to 475. And bring her on out. Let's blow the hole out here. And there you can see the profile that we get for that rear tang and escutcheon. There's plenty of free space for DevCon, and when you get up to the top of the stock here, there won't be any DevCon showing, or very little. Sometimes some of it will squeeze up there and it doesn't matter, but there'll be none on top. There's no big black DevCon mark around this. This is actually pretty close to the size of the Tang, and then obviously this area down here gives us our strength. The escutcheon is only 75 thou below here, so I'm another 125 below that. So I've got plenty of space for my bedding. The next thing I need to do is clear this side for some bedding on the side rails to make sure that my receiver is going to be nice and locked in and repeatable as far as position goes. So we'll be taking this one out. And this cut's a little bit trickier. because I don't want to open up the inlet. I just want to open that bottom. So what we're going to be doing is using the center that we set to figure out where we need to have the edge of the 1/2 inch end mill. And basically what we do is you take the width of your inlet, or the width of the receiver, I'm sorry, the width of the receiver, which is about 1 250. I'll usually use 1 255. I'll guarantee you this inlet on this Ruger stock is quite a bit wider. As a matter of fact, let's take a measurement on it. The width of the inletting on this stock is about 1 270. So as you can see, that receiver is would be and was pretty loose. We don't want it that way, at least not in my world. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a 1/2 inch end mill. Again, this is a 2 flute, doesn't matter. 2 flutes I use quite a bit. Basically depends upon price of the end mill and where I can get them and so forth, what's available. 4 flute works just as well, unless I'm doing a lot of milling, in which case I really do prefer to use a 2 flute, only because it's a non-ferrous, it's wood. Anyway, that locked in, cap on. I'll get this where we can get it over the sidewall without marking up the stock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1 255. Actually, we'll make it 1 260. We got room. So I'm going to take 1.26, divide it by 2, which gives me 0.63, and then I'm going to take away 250, so minus 0.25. So my center, plus or minus off that 0 point, is 0.380. And that's based on 1.260. Now, something I do, I keep this whiteboard here. And the reason for that is I keep notes on it as I'm doing these jobs. And memory's not what it used to be, obviously. So trying to keep track of all these different points could drive you nuts. So here's the plus or minus 0.380 that we just figured out. And that's based off of 1.260 width. And in actuality, we actually have a receiver inlet that's 1.270. But we've got a receiver that's supposed to be nominal 1.250. And typically on the Ruger receivers, they're a little bit smaller than that. I fully understand it from a manufacturer's point of view, simply because they've got to fit everything. They can't have it super tight where a novice gun person picks up the rifle and tries to, take the receiver out or something and cracks it or messes it up or breaks the stock because they don't fully understand exactly what they're doing yet. So they have to put in a lot of, I'm not going to use the word idiot proofing because that's pretty derogatory, but it's pretty descriptive. They have to put in a lot of flexibility into their stock. So what I need to do is I need to have the edge of my tool at the back wall. So what I'm going to come off of it just a little bit. I usually come off of it, 1 to 2 thousandths. I'm a half off, which means that my tool is 5/10 thousandths of an inch away from the back wall. And that's fine. It's not going to affect anything. But you know what? Just for you guys, we'll see if we can get that last 1/10 out. Pretty difficult to do with a. Let's see if we can get her. There we go. We're 0.25, so we're right at the back wall. 0 doesn't really matter at this point because we're going to be cutting anyway, but you want to be kind of in the middle. I need to take this over now. Actually, get figure out where my bottom is of my cut. And that's where I'm going to be, right there. So I want to be 200 below that. I'm sorry, not 200. 100, 125. I usually go down 100 because that's usually plenty. So I set it 0 at the rail, go down 100. And again, this isn't critical either. It's just a dimension that, you know, you cut to CH 101. I'm not going to concern myself with it. I'm going to start the mill. I'm going to run this up. And now I like to do a climbing cut just because I get a good finish from it. So I know that my offsets are plus or minus 380. So I'm going to run this real slow and easy so I don't mess anything up. I'm just going to bring this over and it's going to start cutting down in there. And I'm going to do that till I get over to 375, 380. I'm going to do this. Still coming over. And then we're at 380. And then we'll run it this way on the x-axis. As far as I can with my block. No need to cut the block. But I usually go about 1 inch on my indicator, on my DRO. That gives me plenty of side inlet for what I'm doing. So we get 1 inch there. And carefully run her back the other side. And we're going to run her in. See if I can show you the first side cut. I don't know if you can see that very well or not. I'll come back around here. Anyway, we're going to take this to the 380. Again, this is very sharp tooling. I can't stress that enough. You've got to use sharp tooling. You use dull tooling, you're just asking for trouble. So use very sharp tooling. I haven't sharpened any end mills yet. I've just been buying them because you can usually get pretty good deals. There we are at 380. And same thing, I'm going to cut back to the corner. You can see how it's cutting it down. And we'll run that in until we're at the 250. These Ruger stocks cut pretty easy because they're not walnut, they're a beech. And that's B-E-E-C-H. And we'll run that down to 250. And that's it. Let this up. Run this over here. And out. And run it all the way out here where we can get a good look at it. And that's what you end up with. We're inlet on the sidewalls. So the receiver sits nice and flat and square. We've got the Tang inlet. We've got accommodation for the escutcheon. So we're good to go as far as that goes. On the front, normally now is when I would do my inletting for the front Tang, or front Tang. Basically the same thing. You get front Tang of the receiver fits up in here, and you have your standard takedown, which is usually against the wood. Wood varies quite a bit depending upon humidity, temperature, etc. You compress the wood. Each time you compress the wood, you're moving the point, the front of the receiver a little bit each time. So every subsequent time you take it in and out, you're changing that. So by putting a front pillar in here, you take the wood out of the equation. Now, this is a very early pillar. I do them a little bit differently now, and this entire area is bedded under the receiver itself. And I'll do a different video on the bedding of this thing here when I get time. But basically now is when I would do my inletting for this. And anyway, once all that's done, you have an action that sits down in there, it's locked in, and it doesn't go anywhere. Now there's one more step to this that I need to do, so let me put this down before I forget, and I have forgotten this every now and then. I could do this with the 1/2-inch end mill, but I found that you're doing the bottom trigger inlet is easier if I just change this out and go to a 3/4, and then plus or minus 10 either side of it to give you a little clearance on your trigger guard. So we'll grab 3/4 end mill and we'll be good to go on that. I don't know if this one's long enough. Yeah, that'll do it. That obviously is a 3/4 by 3/4, so I'm going to need to take this out. Now I haven't moved anything, so I can still use my 0 points. That's the beauty of having a DRO, is I can go back. As long as I haven't really moved anything, which I have not, I can go back in and set everything up again. As far as changing tooling and so forth, I can always get back to where I was. Where without a DRO, I'd be sitting there adding and subtracting all day long trying to get to that point. It'll drive you nuts. Talk about a migraine, or as they say, PITA. Yep, where's my top at? Oh, it's on top. Put it on there. I have to run this forward a little bit because I don't think it'll clear. It might. Let's see. Now see, I can bring this all the way back over to 0 and be at the right point. So in this case, I want to be at 0 on the y-axis. And there we've got that. And then I want to be at 3/8 on this axis, because that gets me the back wall. And in this case, one of the things that the rear Tang brings is you no longer have to cam or tilt that receiver to get that section between the trigger and the receiver underneath that ledge there that's down inside there. You don't do that anymore. It's not required. So you can go straight in and out. And preferably that's what you're going to do anyway. So now I'll just get rid of that so we don't have to screw with it. Besides which, once the rear Tang's on there, you've got to get rid of it. Okay, 375. That tells me that this edge of my tool, the cutting edge, is right at the even with the back wall. And that's where I want it to be, because that's where the back of the trigger group is, even with that back wall. Well, we'll go get it real quick. Excuse a slight disarray in my shop. We just slide this up in there to show. Line up the trigger pins, and pretty much that back of the receiver is even with the back of the back of the trigger group is even with the back of the receiver. So I'm just going to mill that straight through on the inlet so I don't have to worry about it. So we'll start that up. Leave it at the speed it's at. Not really worried about depth or anything. I just want to make sure I cut all the way through it. Which I'll know by sound. So obviously that's all the way through. Then I'm going to take and I'm going to offset this by about, well, let's see. Actually, that looks pretty good on this one. I'm just going to leave it where it is. Should be just fine.